Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about a 3D action game that is in development at Nintendo. We keep hearing about different job postings about a 3D action game. Are they all different games? Are they one and the same? What's going on with this project? Is this a big secret next-gen project for Nintendo? Maybe. And so that's what we're talking about today. But before we go forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful, and enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So the recent news that's come up that has led to the creation of this video is this recently discovered job posting from Monolithsoft. If you're not familiar with who Monolithsoft is, it is an internally owned Nintendo studio that develops a variety of things. Perhaps they're most known for their Xenoblade series. They make all the Xenoblade games, but they are also a support studio for a number of other bigger Nintendo projects, such as Splatoon and The Legend of Zelda. So they are a pretty important piece to Nintendo. And recently it's been discovered that they are looking to hire someone who has experience developing 3D action games. And so clearly Monolithsoft is doing something for a 3D action game. Now we know that recently they finished Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and its expansion Future Redeemed, and this entire story seems to have wrapped up. We are expected to get more Xenoblade games in the future, but there also seems to be this thought that this was somewhat of a significant moment for the series, and perhaps the overarching story surrounding Klaus and the Trinity processor has now concluded, and so what we get next in the Xenoblade series may be a bit of a departure. And some are even speculating that perhaps this 3D action game could be that next Xenoblade game. Maybe Xenoblade may change from role-playing as Nintendo defines it on their site to a new genre being 3D action. I'm not so sure this is the case because there's a variety of possibilities here. As I explained, Monolithsoft is responsible for several different projects, not just the Xenoblade games, but also different games in development by Nintendo EPD. So this hiring here may not be for the next Xenoblade game. I don't think this is necessarily hinting that the next Xenoblade game is going to be a 3D action game. It may be that Nintendo is internally working on a 3D action game, and so Monolithsoft is simply hiring to support that team. Which regardless is exciting because be it Nintendo EPD, Monolithsoft, Next Level, Retro Studios, these are all Nintendo studios, and so it's Nintendo development, and it would mean that Nintendo is working on a 3D action game. So regardless, this is exciting. This is evidence that Nintendo is working on a new 3D action game. But there are some other angles to consider here, some of which may give us a hint as to what may be going on. Possibly. So first I'll point out, since we're talking about job listings at Monolithsoft, they still have this job listing up here that shows these cool pieces of concept art for what appears to be a new IP that they've been working on for a very long time. What's that going to be for? It's hard to say. I have been theorizing that this would be a project we would see for the Nintendo Switch 2, which we believe will be announced in the not so distant future, and from everything we've heard, may even be coming out this year as well. Now, I don't think that this Monolithsoft project would be coming out this year, but I do think they would be positioning this project to be releasing fairly soon into the next generation. Very similar to how they had Xenoblade Chronicles 2 come out in the December of 2017 when Switch came out March 2017. Let's say Switch 2 comes out September or October of 2024. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Monolithsoft's next big game come out sometime in 2025, so they have a big game out there early on when people are picking up this system and thus have an opportunity to really see some increased sales for whatever game they put out there, be it the next Xenoblade or a new IP. And so we're not entirely sure what this new IP may be, and this 3D action hiring could be possibly for that as well. And I might argue that that would make more sense than expecting it for Xenoblade, because Xenoblade is a role-playing game. Now, it is also a 3D game, there are action moments, and so maybe there's some room for interpretation for how they're describing the genre here. But 3D action is considered its own genre as opposed to role-playing, and so we may be looking at something pretty different. And just going back to the pieces of concept art that Monolithsoft did share back when we saw these initial hiring posts for this new IP, one is showing this female that looks a lot like a warrior princess, something like Zelda that's been through years of combat, as opposed to just being a basic princess that needs to be saved in the castle. And just for the record, I'm not saying that's what Zelda is all the time in the Zelda games. She does her own thing most of the time. But this is clearly a warrior we're seeing with this piece of concept art, and it looks like something that could be part of a 3D action game. And then this other piece of art almost looks like Dark Souls-esque, but with a Zelda feel to it, and could also conceivably be a 3D action game. So maybe that's what this hiring is for. But there's something that's been going on with this 3D action game thing when it comes to Nintendo hirings. Because Bandai Namco has had multiple 3D action game hiring posts when it comes to Nintendo projects here. A while back we saw that they were hiring for a 3D action game remaster, but now that Bandai Namco has rebranded their dedicated studio that just develops Nintendo, the job hirings there don't mention a 3D action remaster, but they do mention a 3D action game, period. And so, they're obviously working on a 3D action game for Nintendo as well. Could it be the same project, or could they be two different projects? That's hard to say. You might say, well, there's no way, because Bandai Namco and Monolith Soft are two different studios. But as I said earlier, Monolith Soft is known for offering a lot of co-development for different Nintendo projects. And so, while they've normally co-developed for Nintendo EPD teams, that doesn't mean they can't assist with a Bandai Namco Nintendo project, especially with the now recently named Studio 2 and Studio S, which is a dedicated Bandai Namco studio for Nintendo games. So I wouldn't be extremely surprised if this 3D action game that we're seeing job hirings for from both Monolith Soft and Bandai Namco is the same project. Now, I'm not going to say 100% that it is the same project, but I'm simply stating that it's a possibility. And if that is the case, both Bandai Namco and Monolith Soft working together on a 3D action game? What's in store here? This seems kind of massive if you have these two big, awesome teams putting together something really special here. Just for perspective here, these studios have put out some amazing Nintendo games. Monolith Soft, yes, has assisted with games like Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 3 and 2, and Tears of the Kingdom, but their main series are giant RPG adventures that have open areas or open worlds, and they are some of the most visually technically impressive games on Nintendo hardware. And then looking at Bandai Namco, they're responsible for the Smash Bros series, which is huge, but then also games like Pokken Tournament and new Pokemon Snap, which are also visually impressive games for Nintendo hardware. So just the thought of these studios working together for a new Nintendo 3D action game fills me with excitement. Now, that is simply a possibility. I am speculating here. It may be the case that they are two different projects, which arguably is just as, if not more exciting, because then we're getting two Nintendo projects, and both these studios produce high-quality Nintendo games, so there could be two high-quality 3D action Nintendo games in the works here. Now, I'm going to throw something out at you. There was a lot of speculation that the initial job hiring you saw at Bandai Namco that mentioned a 3D action game and a remaster, that it could be for Kid Icarus Uprising, because Masahiro Sakurai was responsible for developing Kid Icarus Uprising. Now, of course, he's more famously known for Smash Bros. And Kirby, and given that he's stepping away from his YouTube channel now, it may be the case that they are hard at work with Smash Bros. There's actually a job hiring post that suggests that they are working on Smash Bros. Bandai Namco, because they have a post talking about hiring for a side view action game. So that's literally describing Smash Bros. And also there's a long history of Bandai Namco and Sakurai working together on Smash Bros. But Sakurai has been on the record several times on his YouTube channel expressing an interest in getting Kid Icarus Uprising ported over to Switch or modern hardware. And so, given that there aren't too many Nintendo games that fall under the genre of 3D action, one of them is Kid Icarus. It could be the case that Bandai Namco is working on a Kid Icarus game, especially with Sakurai having such a close relationship with them. As Sakurai has continually hinted at or discussed the possibility of a Kid Icarus port, a lot of those posts have strongly suggested that it's not happening yet. And so while maybe it's possible this is a bit of a fake out here, I've personally been leaning that it just hasn't been in development yet. Now, that was a few months ago, it may already be in development, and if it's just a remaster, it wouldn't take too long, so perhaps it could be in the works, but it's not necessarily being done by Bandai Namco. And so stick with me here, we'll come back to Monolithsoft in a moment. But if there's a 3D action game in development by Bandai Namco, and it's not Kid Icarus, what other Nintendo series falls under the 3D action genre? Well, there's one that comes to mind that there's actually been a decent amount of evidence popping up for lately, and that's Star Fox. There is the recent Star Fox trademark, we have the recent rumors of Nintendo wanting to work on a Star Fox movie of some kind, also suggesting that there may be a game in the works as well. And we're also a bit overdue for a Star Fox game, so I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility that Nintendo would work with Bandai Namco to make a Star Fox game. Historically speaking, Nintendo usually works with an outside developer to get a Star Fox game out. This is usually the case for a lot of Nintendo's B-tier titles. And just for the record, if a proper Star Fox game is made, I think this could be something that could even be in the Game of the Year conversation. That's how much potential I think Star Fox has, if done right. But the point is, Bandai Namco conceivably could either be working on a Kid Icarus of some kind or a Star Fox of some kind. But that brings me back to Monolithsoft. If there is one studio that is working on a 3D action Nintendo game, and there's another studio that's working on a 3D action Nintendo game, and there's really only two Nintendo IP that satisfy the genre of 3D action properly, what if they're both being worked on right now? What if Bandai Namco is working on Star Fox, and what if Monolithsoft is working on Kid Icarus? When you consider the material that Monolithsoft has done, I don't think Kid Icarus is too much of a stretch. Even looking at some of the concept art, it's not Greek mythology, but creating a game depicting old ancient civilizations with powerful like deities, Monolithsoft has a lot of experience with that, and that definitely fits the script for what a Kid Icarus game could be. But I'm just bringing up possibilities here. Point is, Monolithsoft is working on a 3D action game. It could be in conjunction with another Nintendo studio, maybe it's related to the Bandai Namco 3D action game, or maybe they're two different 3D action games. But the fact that both are in development right now, and considering where we're at with the expectation of Switch 2 being around the corner, and how we've seen a lot of signs pointing towards Nintendo transitioning most of their big development projects to the next generation, these are likely next generation projects. Just look at most of the main games that have come out for Nintendo in the year of 2023. After Fire Emblem Engage, which had its expansion pass and that finished very quickly, the big major Nintendo games, Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4, Mario Wonder, those original releases, none of them had DLC announced before release or even shortly afterwards, which is usually how it goes. And so with DLC not having been announced for these games, and also with the amount of remakes and remasters we're seeing right now, and not too many original projects, it does seem like Nintendo is transitioning over, and so Bandai Namco and Monolithsoft are likely already working on Switch 2 games. Even if you're in the 2025 camp, they're probably still working on next generation games. But it's exciting to think about what these games may be. What do you think? What do you think Bandai Namco is working on? What do you think Monolithsoft is working on? What are they cooking up? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.